Okay. Now, this is a video short lecture titled, What is the Black Community Channeling? And in this video, I don't want there to be an impression of any disrespect to any entertainer or artist. I myself am no better than any other man or woman. I don't view myself as being better than anybody, and I don't view anybody else as being less than the best. I congratulate everybody on their success at whatever level they're at, and so I don't want there to be a misconception. This is for analogy purposes and educational briefing purposes. So, channeling is the ability to extract energy from outside your sphere of influence. Basically anything outside of your soul being, outside of your own personal energy. You can channel a guardian angel, one of your guardian angel spirits, your spirit guide. Me, myself, I talk about channeling the chakra spirit guides. For each chakra, there's a spirit guide, and there's 7 chakras. Then you have ancestral spirits. In Africa, especially in the Congo and other places, small villages throughout Africa, down to Nambia, all the way to Nigeria, you will see people praying to their ancestors. In Africa, that's big. Honoring your ancestors, getting involved with your ancestors spiritually. Long after they passed, Africans have been doing this for thousands and thousands of years. Okay, so channeling does not imply something evil. When you pray to God, that's a form of channeling. You're channeling your energy back and forth. You're picking up on the great spirit of God. Or if you're praying in Jesus, you're picking up on that Christ consciousness. There's an exchange of energy between you and that Christ consciousness. Okay, if you're reading the book, you're channeling information. You're using mental intelligence to channel information. If you look at somebody, and 90% of communication is body language, if you look at somebody and you get a feeling for them or what they're into, that's channeling. That's emotional channeling. The spiritual channeling is when mediums go into a state and they claim they get information from extraterrestrials or from other spiritual world beings. That's channeling. Now, if somebody turns on a television set and watches a TV show, and after they watch that TV show, they go and get the same clothes that they saw the character on the TV show wearing. They start talking like that character. They even start acting like that character and responding like that character. That's channeling. Okay, so channeling is something we're talking about. What is the black community channeling? Now, there was a rapper that I was paying attention to, and I go back, my interpretation of rap started back in the early 90s. That's when I first started listening to rap. Back then you had Tupac Shakur, Biggie Smalls, Eazy-E. So those are the people that I'm familiar with the most when it comes to rap. In today's world, it looks quite different to me. But the fans of these artists, I mean no disrespect, and I mean no disrespect to the artists. I seen a rapper, and I'm going to put a picture up. I saw a rapper named Lil Uzi. And, the brother looks very talented. He looks very, on point. He has good fan base. Proud of him for that. There was a photograph of him wearing like a dress type women's outfit with a purse. And I said, okay. Now, I'm gonna see if I can put a picture up of this. But I remember back on Soul Train, Al Green wore a purse on Soul Train. That song Al Green sang, I'm so tired of being lonely. Al Green went on Soul Train back in the 1970s, and Al Green wore a purse. So what's going on in the black community about rappers, wearing purses or that's not something that just started. That's not something that just started. It's just because it may be way more commercialized now, but it's not something that just started. Okay. So now looking at Lil Uzi, he has a good fan base. Talented guy. I saw one of his music videos, talented guy, but yet he's wearing the purse and wearing the women's outfit. Okay. Now, spirit, not just mentally or emotionally, but spiritually, people connect with this. And is this feminizing people? Is this feminizing young men? Is somebody say it's even perverting young men? What does it actually mean? When people see this and they go portray that, what does that mean? This is a form of channeling. Just like you can turn the dial or you can flip the channel and go look at Eminem. Younger white guys listen to Eminem. Will they start acting like Eminem? It's the same concept. It's the same concept. It's the same concept. But within the black community, there's there's what you call a collective consciousness in the black community. And I'm familiar with researchers or historical figures such as Marcus Garvey with Pan-Africanism. And I've done some work on ancient Pan-Africanism. I talk a little bit about the Olmec statues and how some of these Olmec statues on the other side have corn rolls. People think corn rolls just started when the movie South Central came out with O.G. Bobby Johnson, when he was popularizing corn rolls, with little J-Rock and all that stuff. Corn rolls were on the Olmec statues thousands of years ago. Thousands of years ago. Okay? All right, so Lil Uzi, I took notice to this young man, and he had, his music video was really cool, but the image that's coming through, the black community is coming to the point where they have to recognize what channeling is. When you hear a rap song, and you hear people saying things about like, oh, you gotta go get this money and do this. It makes me think about Pimp C. When Pimp C was speaking on how dope prices were being misquoted. Pimp C made a comment about Young Jeezy, about how drug prices were being misquoted and all that stuff, which is irrelevant on this topic. But just because my point being, is just because something is available through the media, it doesn't mean it's necessarily accurate. Just like you can't believe everything you read, you can't believe everything you see. Just because it's in the book, it doesn't mean it's accurate. Okay, so we have to look back at Motown, and you look at groups like the Four Tops or the Temptations, Smokey and the Miracles. Why has the standard dropped in some way from that? Has the standard dropped in some way from that? Has the standard dropped in some way from that? Is there a demonic element in this? Is there a demonic goal? I'm mixed. Right? My father is black. My father was born in 1939 in Jackson, Mississippi. My father and my uncles can remember when they had to sit on back of the bus, when the Ku Klux Klan would just lynch you just because you owned a store. If you were a black man and you owned a store, you would be lynched. Okay, so there was a point where black people said, well, no matter how much energy we put into something, no matter how hard we work, somebody's going to come lynch us or burn our store down or tear up our farm. So therefore, it's safer for us to start businesses in white areas and eat at white restaurants and drink out of white drinking fountains, because every time we have something, the Ku Klux Klan shows up and burns it down. So now coming into the civil rights movement, and at this is the time I remember my father at one point dated Miss Black America in his era. You had a time when there was a Miss America, but because of segregation, black women could not be Miss America. Only white women could be Miss America. So you had Miss America, then Miss Black America. And I remember my father dated Miss Black America. So my perception of segregation goes back to my grandfather coming out of the early 1900s in the Deep South, whatnot. So my I missed a generation. Most of the people my age who had black parents, their parents didn't go as far back as my father went. Their parents were from a newer generation. So my perspective was from the pre-civil rights era on a lot of things. Now getting back to my original point. There seems to be a cross-cultural mutation appearing, not racially, but through desire. A cross-cultural mutation appears to be occurring through desire. They're sort of like a one-look-fits-all type of thing. And, we're meant to believe that there's more choice and availability now, but whenever I go out and I look at a new car, all the cars look the same. Have you noticed that? Go out and begin looking at new cars. All the cars look the same. Nissan, Chrysler, Ford, even Cadillac, Lincoln, they all look the same. If you went back to General Motors, back a few decades ago, all the cars looked different. A Chevy looked like a Chevy, a Cadillac looked like a Cadillac, a Pontiac looked like a Pontiac, a Lincoln looked like a Lincoln. Remember, you had older cars like, the GTOs and remember the Willys? You ever heard of a Willys truck? You had cars that don't even exist now. There used to be a time where people made cars by hand. Now all the cars look the same. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a cross-cultural mutation. All the cars look the same. All the styles look the same. And don't get me started on my original. You got to listen to some of my metaphysical mentoring classes. I break down how you're born with no name. You're given a name. You're given a language. You're given a religion. You're given an identity of what music to listen to, what music not to listen to, how to behave and how not behave. You're born into a cultural matrix. Even if you want to rebel, they show you the form of rebellion to do it with. That's in my metaphysical mentoring classes. But I'm going back to originally, okay, now look at other artists. There's other rappers out there. I'm not just picking on one. And we can go into rock musicians. We don't have to leave it at rap. But there's other rappers out here doing the same thing. What does this mean? This is a form of channeling. People are channeling this, extracting this emotional energy, this spiritual energy. And there's ancient symbolism being used. Ancient symbolism. That may be for another short lecture. But what does it mean? And people need to sit down and think about this. And don't blame the artist. Don't blame the artist. Very often, the artists have very little control over their image. It'd be ignorant of me to blame somebody like Lil Uzi or blame an artist. Artists don't even decide on their album covers 99.9% of the time. They may be shown a selection of covers to pick, but they're not the ones creating the album covers. Oftentimes, they don't even pick their name. So blaming the artist is not the right way to go. We have to look deeper than that and say, what does this image mean for me? What does the image mean for me? What am I channeling out of this? What am I getting out of this? Now, oftentimes, the younger people will see a sense of freedom. they'll see the artist and how the artist is behaving, and they'll see the music video. And what they really want is something much deeper. They want freedom. Go back to the early 90s. Remember Boys in the Hood. Ice Cube, Lawrence Fishburne, the whole crew. Boys in the Hood. Now, the movie Boys in the Hood, I remember there was an actor in the movie. Remember the guy who shot Ricky in the movie? I don't know if this is true. But I even heard the actor who shot Ricky in Boys in the Hood, I heard after the movie, he did become a gang member. He became a gang member and ended up in prison. Then he killed himself in prison or something like that. He became the Image. That's a rumor I heard. I don't know if it's true, but somebody told me that. But he became the Image he played in the movie. He channeled the character. He got so much into the character. Okay. Just like Tupac Shakur played Bishop in Juice, and this is in my metaphysical mentoring classes, I mentioned this. Tupac Shakur played Bishop in Juice. Before Juice, Tupac was a more gentle, relaxed guy. Tupac was more gentle, more relaxed. More gentle, more relaxed. More gentle, more relaxed. After the movie Juice, he became like a super thug. And a lot of the people who saw the movie Juice, that was their first impression of Tupac. They didn't know who Tupac Shakur was. Tupac Shakur came out, if you go back to his old movies, if you go back to his old music, like Panther Power or In the Days of a Criminal, and some of those old class, like the song Static that Tupac made back in the late 80s, you go back to his Digital Underground image with Humpty, he was more of an Afrocentric, pro-black figure. When Juice came out, that's when the thug life philosophy began with Tupac. Okay, he channeled that character so much into his soul, it flipped him, and he changed. Not judging Tupac. I bought all his tapes, matter of fact. I bought the Thug Life tape. I bought the Me Against the World tape. I bought the All Eyes on Me tape. Wonderful tapes, not judging him. He did a marvelous job. But I'm showing you, this is channeling. Channeling characters. Channeling characters. Now, Boys in the Hood was a film that all kinds of people went and seen. Even middle-class white people who didn't know anything about living in the hood went to go see the film. A lot of people went to go see the film. Very controversial. A lot of people didn't want their children to see it, but a lot of people saw the film. Menace to Society. Wonderful film. Deep film. Higher Learning. Deep film. You can go on just like Juice or remember Ice-T did Trespass. Okay. Now, back in the early 90s, the characters, you would have never seen somebody necessarily dress like portraying that image, dressed with a purse and whatnot. You never would have seen that, but nevertheless, you still had an image. People saw the gangster image. And a lot of people channeled this image. Younger people who never would have picked up a gun and shot anybody in their life, channeled this image. Channeled the image. Went and got a gun. Went and bought some drugs. It's not that these things weren't already around them in the inner city, in the black community. You have, especially in that era, you had your fill of guns and drugs. It wasn't hard to get the stuff, but the film made it a lot easier. And this stuff was already going on before the film, so you can't blame the film. But it wasn't until it spilled out into the mainstream community when you saw younger Caucasian men start sagging their pants, getting into gang violence. That's when it became an uproar. These young people were channeling the image and identifying with the image because of the freedom they saw in it. Just like when they look at the Little Uzi image, they are not. I'm not just picking on Little Uzi, but when they see these new artists dressing like that, they see freedom in it. The young man, a lot of young Caucasian kids who lived in good neighborhoods, they may have saw a movie like Boys in the Hood or men in society, and they identified the image with freedom. They may have not wanted to go to college and be a doctor or a lawyer and have that pressure put on them and sit in class every day. But if they could dress, wear some baggy pants, 40 ounce of beer or something. Remember when the starter jackets were popular? They put one of those starter jackets on back then with a hoodie or something. A lot of people looked at that image as having a sense of freedom. So, this is an analogy. A lot of people pick up on images that really aren't them, but what they really want behind it is the freedom that it's showing. They want a sense of freedom. They want a feeling of freedom. So that's what this is about. What is the black community channeling? And it's things like shows. You watch a show like MTV. If you say MTV enough, it sounds like empty. MTV. It sounds like empty. So, not picking on MTV. Wonderful show. But a wonderful program. But we're looking deeper. We're looking deeper into what are people channeling. And so I'd like to be able to come back at some point, leave a comment, let me know what you think. Not picking on the artist, just showing the sense. Is there a sense of freedom behind the image, and the individual thinks they have to be the image to get the freedom that they want within themselves? That's the real question.